So you've decided that it's time to appoint either a buyer's agent or a property agent for your commercial property or business. Are you going to be the sacrificial lamb, the lamb to the slaughter, or are you going to be one who recognises quickly if you're working with a professional? G'day, I'm Peter Bender from Bundaberg Commercial, and I'm a commercial realtor and business broker. I spend pretty well all my time from sun up to sundown helping people buy and sell business properties and businesses. One of the main tools of the trade that we have is what's called a listing form. And today I'm going to go through how to identify the key areas of the listing form so that you know if you're doing the right thing and if the person you're dealing with, as in the agent, is doing professional services for you. Now, the first thing that we have is probably the history a little bit of what we call the Form 6A. That's the name for the form. It's not rocket science. There we go. See, Form 6A. And I will send a link in the comments so that you can actually go on site to download it and have a good look at it. Until about May 2024, we used to have what was called the Form 6. Now, the Form 6 was the predecessor. Once again, not rocket science. Can you tell what's called a Form 6? Yep, Form 6. It's not complicated being a real estate agent. I tell you, we make these things very simple. Now, our industry has been notorious, unfortunately, for a lot of charlatans and cowboys. Whenever you have a business or an industry that has a lot of money, you're going to find some people with questionable ethics. Wherever you find an industry where people are driving their salespeople or their staff hard and probably beyond realistic measures, you'll find people will cross the line into some of the unethical and illegal things. Now, we can be optimistic and say that there are things like a 3-year jail sentence and $30,000 fines. However, when you're talking to people who have a lot at stake, you will find there's always going to be some that go around and violate options. It's sad, and I want you to help me break that nexus to get these charlatans out of the business. And one of the big challenges we have is that Australians, just by culture, don't like to dob on people. Even if you've been ripped off and conned, you still won't dob them in to the authorities. So, recognizing that, I want to spend the next couple of minutes explaining what should happen, so that if you're dealing with someone and these things aren't happening, you know straight away that there are alarms going off, red flags popping up, DEFCON 4 sirens going off saying, beware, beware, watch out what's going on. Now, the government has intervened, as they do in industries that misbehave, and they have provided us with a standard form to help make sure that there's at least a minimum amount of guarantee for protection for customers. Before May 2004 or 2024, there's what was called a Form 6, and both the residential industry and the commercial property industry used a Form 6. In May, they recognised that you really can't have one shoe that fits all people. Can you really use the same form for someone who's selling a 3-bedroom house with a garage and a toilet, and compare that with the same form for someone who's doing a conglomerate that runs with 7 buildings, 7 acres, and is talking about millions of dollars? The government recognised, no, that's probably not. So they created what's called the Form 6A. So the residential real estate agents still use a Form 6. Commercial agents use a Form 6A. Now, this is where the fun starts. As industries change, and you will find that the residential market is starting to cool down a little bit, a lot of my brothers and sisters in the residential market might be tempted to see if they can take care of some client in the commercial space. I remember I had one of my clients saying, we're going to appoint a second agent, Peter. I said, that's fine. But they told me that you've got the wrong form. I said, that's interesting. Now, okay, I'll be honest. I'm one of those people, I do not take negative or constructive feedback very well. You can give it to me, but you better be right. So I asked, and why is it different? He said, this agent came up and gave us a different form, and it looks slightly different to yours, so you need to, sharpen up your act and use the right form. And I said, okay, I'll tell you what. So go to your solicitor, take my form and take the other form, and let the solicitor tell you which one it is. Because if I tell you, you're not going to believe me anyway, and hopefully if they tell you, you won't believe them either. Short story is, it was a residential agent that they were working with, and they were using the Form 6. That's the one that they use for residential properties, because that's all they've been using for the last 10 years while they've been working in the residential market. Needless to say, I got mine back, the Form 6A, all signed and delivered, and recognised as being correct. They didn't actually apologise and say, sorry, Peter, for getting it wrong. But that's okay, the message got across. So the first thing that you want to be aware of when you're signing either a buyer's agent or a seller's agent is make sure it's either a Form 6A for commercial as opposed to a Form 6. It's a simple thing, but if they come up with the wrong form straight away, how on earth are they going to manage contracts? So Form 6A is what you're looking for. So we'll go through the most part. So the first part is essentially client details, and then you have license details for the real estate agent. Now this is an important part. Real estate agents are licensed as part of the government approval. We're vetted each year or each couple of years. We have to renew our applications and our licenses. It also checks to make sure that we're managing our trust accounts and clients' funds correctly. It also makes sure that our paperwork is correct. So on the section which says license details, you will have a license number for the agent and you'll have an expiry date. Just check that an expiry date is actually in the future as opposed to an old form that hasn't been updated. And you can go online to the Office of Fair Trading in Queensland, and pretty well all states will have a similar website. And you can punch in the registration number for the agent and they'll tell you if it's a valid registration or not. The 5% of renegades out there, look, a lot of them may have an invalid license, because to get this license, they need to go back to school. They need to do a significant course, pass the exams, pass the assessments. And particularly some of my really senior people in the industry, they just don't want to be going back to books. They don't want to be learning more material. This is how they've done business for 30, 40, 50 years, and it's just going to be fine. But for your own safety, make sure that you check the registration on the Office of Fair Trading website. Now, the Form 6A, it's a simple form. The government's made it simple for us. Yeah, sarcasm. It's about 20 pages, but it is fairly easy to understand. On the second page, it explains what is being sold. Now, in my instances, if it's a leasehold business or a freehold business, I put down the details, the address. If there's property involved, we have title references. It lets you know exactly what it is that you're selling. The reason they do that is sometimes people will have multiple properties, and this form just specifies which property or which asset it is that you want us to buy or sell for you. Then we explain what is the actual service that we're going to provide. Are we selling something? Are we purchasing something? Are we renting something? Are we leasing something? Are we putting something to auction? Just explains exactly what the service is for. Now, on the second page where section 2 is, one of the other things that indicates if you're working with someone who knows what they're doing or not, it has a box there for single appointment for a particular service. In the residential market in particular, you have a period or an exclusivity period, which is normally 3 months. Another indication that you're dealing with a residential person is they'll bring you one of these forms and they'll just normally tick the box saying starting on this date, ending 3 months' time. The issue is very little in commercial gets done in 3 months. So the Office of Fair Trading has recognised that. And it says in here, there is no limitations on the length of appointment for anything other than residential property sale. So if you assign with me, I'll actually give you a start date and there'll be no end date. The end date is basically if you decide later on that you didn't like me or I wasn't performing to your standard, you drop me an email and cancel my listing. But it's not a 30-day or 90-day listing as they do in residential. So if you get someone who's put a 90 days on there, recognize you're probably dealing with a residential agent. The last client, the settlement that I did last week, Took me 31 months to get that through. 31 months is a lot longer than 3 months. That's why we don't have set periods as agents in commercial. It's generally an open contract. Now, in that particular instance, they actually had 2 other contracts that fell down during that period, so that makes it a bit hard. But the idea is to let you know that commercial and residential are 2 very different animals. So be sure you're working with a commercial person. Then you have the price. Now, similar to residential, they should have worked out the price with you, and some of my clients just say, Peter, this is how much it is, and I don't care how you work it out, just sell it at that price. We work around those aspects. But usually there'll be some sort of analysis from the commercial agent. There may be, if it's a commercial property, there should be a comparative analysis. They should have 2 or 3 other properties that were nearby sold recently, so that you can say, okay, well, your price is similar to their price. If it's a business, they should have a methodology for things like, okay, are assets valued at replacement costs? Is goodwill valued at 2 times net profit? Is stock valued at stock evaluation? Those type elements should be included in a methodology somewhere, either attached with his form or separately. Usually you have it attached with a form, so there's no arguments later on. Then you have special instructions. I've yet to have anyone fill out that special instructions, but it may be that I had one client, we didn't have it as a written instruction, but he wanted me to bring him the buyers and then he does the actual negotiations. He wanted to play real estate agent, and you just know the result. The result was I gave him 4 contracts, he blew 3 of them. In the end, I said, look, you take care of your business and let me be the real estate agent. Otherwise, we're just going to keep wasting time and nothing's going to happen. So that may be a case of a special instruction. On the page after that, we have details on the types of listings. Now, this is where a lot of knowledge and understanding comes in. You have open listings, sole agency, or exclusive agency. So an open listing is what you may use if you decide to use more than one agent. An open listing means you have a couple of agents, 2 or 3 agents. The downside on that is make sure you work out the marketing. If you have, and I've seen this before, I had property developers who have had 4 agents, 4 sets of ads, 4 photos, all very similar of the same block of land, and all it does is confuse buyers. The first thing they say is, why are there 4 agents trying to sell this property? So an open listing is when you have multiple agents. The upside on that, theoretically, is it's almost like a Shark Tank. Yeah, the hungriest shark will get the sale. The reality is, it's actually total opposite. Most agents will say, I'd rather work with someone who wants to work with me, and I'd rather work with an exclusive listing. So I'm not going to fight too hard for the others. If someone rings for me, then yeah, I'll take care of it. But I'm not going to go out and hunting on that one. So sometimes buyers or sellers being greedy and having open listings, it doesn't actually work for them. The next type of listing is what's called a sole agency. Now, sole agency says, I'm going to have one agent, but there's the aspect in there that if the buyer happens to find a buyer, if the seller happens to find their own buyer, then there's no commission to the agent. Now, this can be in a situation where people have been in the industry for a long time and they may be working with some of their suppliers or some of their agents or some of the other competitors in the industry, and they may have really good connections in that space. And they may find that they can negotiate with one of those people to buy that property. So if the seller finds the buyer, why should the agent be given a commission? And that's essentially what a sole agent is. If the real estate agent finds a buyer, then the real estate agent gets paid. One of the other aspects of when you use a sole agency is the seller may have someone in the wings that they want to work with, maybe a staff buyout or something like that, but they're not confident that they're getting the top-notch price, and they use a commercial agent to see what they can do in regards to getting a better price. Then when the agent comes up and says, you've got 1.3 million offered with a staff buyout, I've got another offer here for 1.6 million. Which way do you want to go? It gives the option for the seller in that particular instance. The final category is what's called an exclusive agency. Exclusive agency pretty well means if I sell it, you sell it, your mother sells it, your next door neighbour sells it, another agent sells it, then it makes no difference, I still get paid. And that's the premise of most agents. Probably the concern that a lot of sellers have is, if I give you exclusive agency, you're just going to sit on your hands and do nothing and watch YouTube videos all day. Yes, that may happen with those 5% of useless people, but for commercial, they're not going to make much money that way. What an exclusive agency means to me is go out there, work hard, and if you get the job done, you get paid. That's the premise behind it. In the exclusive agency, for those who have a time period, it says if the exclusive agency period runs out, then it reverts to an open listing. And that's quite comfortable as well. Like I said, you can change at any time with these categories. You can do that by doing an email or just check with your solicitor to make sure it works out. So if you're going online and you've done the link and had a look at the website, the next part is essentially signatures that says, yes, you've read the pages before and you know what you're going into, and particularly your agent has explained the differences between the listing types. If your agent hasn't explained the difference between exclusive, sole and open listing, once again, there's a DEFCON alarms. There's red flags going on. There's something going wrong. This is not how it should be. It's one of the key criteria of our job is to protect our clients, and sometimes we need to do that by explaining to them what the terms and conditions are. I also tell my clients, take this form, take it to your solicitor. They see these forms all day, every day. If your agent isn't telling you to do that, once again, it's probably not a real professional aspect because they're not protecting you by making sure you're using your advisors appropriately. Then on part 7, down there, you'll see it says commission. Okay. I love this part. I love this part because it's commission, but I love this one because it brings me a lot of humour. How do you find that you're dealing with a residential agent? Now, in the residential market, depending where you are, but in Queensland, they can only charge a maximum of 3.3%. Now, that's 3% plus GST. That's been mandated by the government because they previously had all sorts of exorbitant commission rates from residential agents. So the government says, look, 3.3 is the maximum. You may find people have a different figure, particularly in very competitive areas or where the market, it's tough to get listings. It may go down to 2.2. I've seen some at 1.2 and something like that sort of figure, but they're just crazy figures, and they're usually people who just do internet marketing. They don't actually talk to people to do contracts. You do your own agency fees, that sort of type. But the point is, if you are talking to someone and they're charging you 3.3%, and that is their opening point, once again, that indicates to me a residential background. And I always laugh because commercial rates are generally a lot higher. One of the other things you look at is you can check the caliber of the salesperson. Whatever the rate is, if it's 3.3 or if it's 8.8 or if it's over the 10 mark, depending on who you're looking for, or something in the middle. I always say, can you do something about that commission rate? Can you sharpen your pencil? You don't have to be rough on them, but it's a bit of a test that I like to do, because what you find, if an agent will drop their commission rate straight away or without a lot of hard negotiation, then I'll tell you one thing, when a buyer comes up, they are not going to protect your price. These are the people who will probably come up 2 weeks' time, use a residential sales mentality again, saying, your property hasn't sold, it's obviously too overpriced, we need to drop the price. Or they'll talk to a buyer and the buyer will say, well, I see you listed for $1 million, but I only want to pay $800,000. These are the people who will say, oh, yes, I'll take that $800,000 and go back to the seller and we'll get that deal done for you. If they're not prepared to fight and protect their commission, then they sure as heck ain't going to fight and protect your full sales price. I've had a client that we did a contract for yesterday. They were initially, the first offer from The buyer was $313,000. We finished at $475,000. And at no stage did I go up to my seller and ask for a price reduction. I said, we can get this price and we'll get this price. This is what you paid me for. So in that particular instance, they're probably going to pay me an extra $40,000 in commission compared to the residential agent. But I've given them an extra $170,000 in their pocket. So you basically get what you pay for. You know, if you want a car, you can either get a Mitsubishi or you can get a BMW. Both will get you from A to B. Some people just like to do the cheap end of town. Some people don't want to spend money. That's fine. I have no worries with that one. Just don't come to me because I'm not into that sort of market. So that's the component about commission. The next thing is in regards to marketing. Now, I tell people there are two charges when you sign up, is either the buyer's agent or with a commercial agent. One is a commission and the other is marketing. Sometimes an agent will pay for the marketing themselves. That's fine, but make sure you know what you're getting for. But other times you'll find that an agent will want you to pay for the marketing. Like I said, one of the things in commercial businesses, only 15% of businesses sell. So as running a business, would you want to be paying marketing for the 85% of businesses that aren't going to sell? That's a quick way to go bankrupt. So what we do is we charge for marketing. There, once again, with the 5% of baddies, they will charge you a marketing fee that is well above what they're going to pay for marketing. As an example, if you're selling a business with me, it will probably cost me about $930 to market that through all the sites. I have seen commercial brokers charging their clients $4,000 for marketing plus $130 each month. There is no $130 each month, and there is no $4,000 needed to do your marketing. And the government has realised this. So has the REIQ and the New South Wales real estate industry. When you get to the stage on the form of marketing, you'll see there's a lot of space there. What the agent should be doing is giving you a marketing plan. At minimum, it'll say, these are the sites I'm going to market to. This is the cost of going on each of those sites, and that gives you a total cost. If you get someone who says, oh, look, it's $4,000 and there's no breakup on there, you know the story. There's the DEFCON siren, there's the red flags. These are all these indicators to say, okay, something is not quite right here. If you've got an agent's come to you and they've broken it down, then you have a higher level of comfort that the money that you're handing over to that person is going to be spent as it should. The other trick of the trade, which is highly illegal and is against the law, but unfortunately it doesn't stop it from happening in that 5% of time, is the money that you pay for marketing should go into what's called a trust account. Now, your lawyer has a trust account, and a lot of accountants will have a trust account, and your real estate agent will have a trust account. What a trust account is a special bank account which is audited by the government or particular auditors, and it makes sure that the money you have in trust on behalf of a client is spent the way that it should be. So for those who have a $4,000 non-itemized charge, what you will find is they probably won't give you a trust account receipt. That money will usually go into their operating account, just like a normal business. It'll pay for coffee, it'll pay for toilet paper, it'll pay for wages, it'll pay for whatever the business needs. It generally won't pay for your marketing. Whereas if you have an agent that has it itemized in regards to how they're going to spend your money, and you get a trust account receipt, you should get that within 48 hours of when you deposit the money, then you'd be comfortable that they are going to use those funds purely for marketing. Hope I've explained that enough. But once again, that's a quick, easy way, non-confrontational. If you've got marketing expenses, be prepared to pay for it, but also be prepared to only pay for marketing, not for toilet paper, not for coffee shop visits, not for wages. That's not what you're being charged for. Make sure you get that trust account sorted out. Then we have a section for other fees and charges. Look, something like property searches they may charge. Once again, that tends to be a little bit more in the residential market. Because we work in bigger numbers in the commercial space, you'll find that in my particular instance, as an example, I pay for the property searches and the fees and charges. I don't sweat the small stuff. So you won't find details in there of $14.50 to generate a Queensland titles search. In the residential section, particularly when the market's quiet and business is tough for them, they may pass those on to you. It's once again, it's a negotiating tool if you want it. Then you have another page of signatures. Why they have 2 pages? Well, the first one is to really focus on the type of listing, and the second signature is really to focus on the charges that you have. Then you have essential terms and conditions. There's lots of bits and pieces in there. You just got to read the stuff. There's things in here. I had a discussion the other day with one of my clients, and they asked if I was going to charge them for stock evaluation as part of the price. I said yes. It's been itemised in the commission statement, and it's in the terms and conditions. They said, no, it's not. I thought, well, I'd read my terms and conditions, and they came back, they had a look, and yes, it's in there. You have things like vendor finance, what happens in cases of vendor finance, what happens in cases of term payments, all those. That's all listed in here. It also explains under what circumstances you have to pay a commission and what circumstances you don't. There's details on you in regards to relevant facts. In a case of business, I can only tell a buyer what you've told me. If you've told me furfies, then that's all I can tell a buyer, and I'm an agent, so they'll come after me, but you're my principal, and that all relates back to it. That's all outlined in the actual document. There's what's called a schedule to sale for this contract as well. It's almost, the Form 6A almost has two forms. The schedule makes me laugh because it has a lot of duplication. It once again asks you, is it an exclusive sale? Is it not exclusive sale? It talks about a few other things in there, however. Things like asbestos registers. If you have a building that's for sale as opposed to a business, so that sort of component is in there. There's a few other of those, quirky type stuff. So if you get 20 pages worth of material, make sure you either read it and read it well, or you take it to your solicitor and say, give me the 30-second lowdown. Let them have a quick look at this document and see if it's accurate. One final point on that commission section, as I remember, because not everything is in a straight line with the way I think. In the commission section for commercial, the best standard practice is to say the commission is, for argument's sake, 8.8%. And that will mean it will cost you $88,000 if I sell your business for $1 million. We do that even though it's say 8.8% on full sale price, and the sale price may be $1 million. People sometimes don't calculate that. They don't actually understand it. And then when you get to settlement stage and you put in your commission check, and if you haven't done this, you deserve to be hammered anyway, is my viewpoint. But it explains that the commission is based on this and how much it is. So if you put that on your Form 6A, there's no arguments. The seller knows from day one exactly how much it's going to cost him if you do your job and get a full commission price. If you sell the property less or the asset less, well then the commission's a little bit less. So the danger is if it's not broken up. Sometimes also, like in the cases of motels or freehold businesses, you may have a couple of commission rates, one for the property and one for the business. So that should be itemised in the commission section, and it should say, if the business is sold at $1 million, it's $88,000. If the property sold at $2 million, it's $176,000. They should be detailed on there. All right, that's probably more than you need to know, but it is everything you need to know. So if you're going to be having a buyer's agent or a commercial agent, You now know which form is needed. That's a 6A. You now understand the history of why the forms were there, because the government has concerns and there's legislation in place to protect you. You know, even if you really, really like that salesperson, the him or the her, check it out with a lawyer to make sure. Have a look at the marketing section. Make sure that it is identifying that money is going into a trust account and it's itemized. Have a good look at the commission section. Make sure that's also itemized and has a final amount for you. If you do those things, you're probably going to be really comfortable knowing that you're dealing with a professional, and there's some professionals that get the jobs done. All right, till next week, take care and God bless.